The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the New Mexico desert as Dr. Marcus Rivera wiped sweat from his brow. 15 years of archaeological experience hadn't prepared him for what he was about to discover in these ancient Pueblo ruins. The readings from his ground-penetrating radar showed something impossible, a perfect sphere buried 20 feet beneath centuries-old Native American structures. He was preparing to call his research team when the ground trembled. At first, he thought it was an earthquake, but the vibration had a pattern, almost like footsteps. Then he heard it, a sound like metal scraping against stone, coming from the deeper chambers of the ruins. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and emergency kit, years of curiosity overriding his common sense. As he descended into the darkness, the temperature dropped dramatically. His flashlight beam caught something reflective in the corner, not pottery shards or ancient tools, but something that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. That's when he saw her. She was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. She wore what looked like battle armor, but it was unlike anything he'd ever seen, organic, almost alive with patterns that flowed across its surface. And she was injured, purple blood seeping from a wound in her side. "Stay back," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying an otherworldly harmonic. "They'll be here soon." Marcus didn't run. Maybe he should have, but something in her eyes, all three of them, spoke of desperation rather than threat. "I'm a doctor," he said, slowly raising his hands. "Well, not a medical doctor, but I can help." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "You don't understand, human. I'm not here by choice. I'm being hunted, and my presence puts your entire species at risk." Marcus took another step forward, medical kit extended. "I'm Marcus. And right now, you're bleeding out in my archaeological site. Let's deal with that first, then worry about the apocalypse." As he approached, his flashlight illuminated more details. What he'd thought was armor was actually part of her, biomechanical enhancements that seemed to be trying to repair themselves. Her wound wasn't from a weapon he recognized. It looked like reality itself had been torn. "I am Zyra," she said finally, allowing him to approach. "Last sentinel of the crystalline throne. And you, Marcus Rivera, have just involved yourself in a war that's been raging since before your ancestors learned to make fire." As Marcus began treating her wound with his limited supplies, the ground shook again. This time, Zyra's expression changed to one of pure fear. "They're here," she whispered. "Who's here?" Marcus asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. "The Void Hunters. They've tracked me across 12 galaxies. They won't stop until they have what I'm protecting." She pulled something from a dimensional pocket in her armor, a crystal that seemed to contain an entire universe within its facets. "The future of both our species depends on this staying out of their hands." The ruins around them began to crumble as something massive approached. Marcus could hear inhuman screams echoing through the ancient corridors. Zyra stood, pulling him up with strength that belied her injured state. "You have two choices, Marcus Rivera," she said, her color-shifting skin pulsing with urgency. "You can leave now, return to your life, and pretend this never happened, or you can help me prevent the extinction of both our species. But choose quickly. We have about 30 seconds before they break through." Marcus looked at the tunnel leading back to the surface, back to his normal life of pottery shards and academic papers. Then he looked at Zyra and the crystal that held mysteries beyond human comprehension. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Zyra's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. "First, we run, then I teach you how to help me save the universe." She grabbed his hand, and her biomechanical enhancements extended to cover them both. "I hope you're ready to learn that everything you know about human history is wrong." As they fled deeper into the ruins, Marcus realized his life's work studying the past was about to help him save the future. The sound of their pursuers grew closer, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, secrets waited that would change humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos forever. The deeper chambers of the ruins defied everything Marcus knew about pre-Columbian architecture. The walls were carved with symbols that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them, and the air hummed with an energy that made his teeth ache. Zyra moved with purpose, her biomechanical enhancements casting ethereal patterns on the ancient stones. "These ruins," she said as they descended, "were not built by your ancestors. They're remnants of an outpost my people established 10,000 years ago. We've been watching, protecting Earth from forces you couldn't comprehend." Marcus stumbled over a fallen column, his mind racing. The artifacts we've found, the pottery, the tools. Camouflage, Zyra replied, her three eyes scanning the darkness ahead. The native peoples who lived here later were under our protection, though they never knew it. We hid our technology in plain sight, disguised as their cultural artifacts. A distant explosion rocked the chambers. Purple energy crackled along Zyra's armor as she pulled Marcus into a hidden alcove. The crystal in her hand pulsed with increasing intensity, its light revealing intricate machinery embedded in the supposedly ancient walls. "The Void Hunters," Marcus whispered. "What exactly are they?" Zyra's color-shifting skin darkened to a deep indigo. "They're what happens when a civilization discovers secrets they're not ready for. They were once like your people, curious, ambitious. But they found something in the dark between galaxies, something that changed them. Now they serve it, hunting down artifacts like this one that could threaten their master's dominion." She held up the crystal, and within its facets, Marcus saw impossible things, stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, reality itself bending like light through water. "This is the Nexus Key. It contains the collected knowledge of 1,000 dead worlds, including the location of something that could either save or destroy every living thing in the universe." The sound of metal tearing through stone echoed through the chamber. The Void Hunters were getting closer. Marcus could hear their breathing now, a sound like wind through dead trees. "Why did you choose to reveal yourself to me?" Marcus asked, his archaeological training still pushing him to understand, to document, even in the face of danger. Zyra's expression softened. "Because you're different, Marcus. Your species is young, but you have something rare, the ability to see wonder instead of weapon, to choose hope over fear. And because," she hesitated, her biomechanical enhancements flickering, "because the key showed me you were coming. It's been showing me fragments of this moment for centuries." Before Marcus could process this revelation, a beam of dark energy cut through the wall beside them. Through the breach stepped a figure that defied description, a being wrapped in technology that seemed to bend light around it, its form suggesting a humanoid shape twisted by something beyond human comprehension. Zyra pushed Marcus behind her, her armor expanding to create a shield. "Run!" she shouted, but Marcus stood his ground. He'd spent his life studying the past. He wasn't about to run from the future. Instead, he grabbed a fallen piece of the alien machinery from the floor. The moment his hand touched it, it hummed to life, responding to something in his DNA that even he didn't understand. Zyra's eyes widened in surprise. "Impossible," she breathed. "The ancient protocols, they recognize you." The Void Hunter charged, its form distorting reality around it. But Marcus held his ground, the alien device in his hand growing warm. Somehow he knew exactly what to do. He raised the device, and a pulse of energy erupted from it, pushing the hunter back through its own breach. Zyra stared at him in amazement. "The legends were true," she said. "Some of us stayed behind, merged with your ancestors. You're not just human, Marcus. You're a descendant of my people's last great experiment, an attempt to create guardians who could protect both our worlds." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Every question he'd ever had about human evolution, about the mysterious leaps in ancient technology, about his own inexplicable ability to understand ancient languages, it all suddenly made terrible, wonderful sense. But there was no time to process this revelation. More Void Hunters were coming, and the crystal's pulsing had become almost frantic. Zyra grabbed his hand, her biomechanical enhancements once again extending to cover them both. "The key isn't just showing us the past anymore," she said urgently. "It's showing us where we need to go next. Are you ready to learn just how deep your connection to the stars really goes?" Marcus looked at the alien device in his hand, still humming with power that felt both foreign and frighteningly familiar. "Lead the way," he said, knowing that every step forward would take him further from the life he'd known, and closer to a truth that would change everything. The desert night stretched endlessly above them as Marcus and Zyra emerged from a hidden exit miles from the original ruins. Stars blazed in unfamiliar patterns, or perhaps Marcus was just seeing them clearly for the first time. The alien device he'd activated still hummed in his grip, its power flowing through him like a second heartbeat. "There's something you're not telling me," Marcus said, watching Zyra's biomechanical armor repair itself under the starlight. "About why the Void Hunters really want the key." Zyra's color-shifting skin rippled with what might have been uncertainty. "The key isn't just knowledge," she admitted. It's a map to the Forge, the place where my people created the first gates between worlds. The Void Hunters don't serve their master by choice. They're searching for the Forge to free themselves. A distant howl echoed across the desert, not coyotes or wolves, but something that made the air itself shiver. Marcus raised the alien device instinctively, its power responding to his thoughts. "You're adapting quickly," Zyra observed, her three eyes scanning the horizon. "The genetic memory in your cells is awakening, but we need to move faster. The hunters weren't the only ones tracking me." As if summoned by her words, the sky above them shimmered. A massive shape emerged from what looked like a tier in reality, a ship that seemed to be made of living crystal and light. Unlike the oppressive presence of the Void Hunters, this vessel radiated pure power and authority. Zyra's reaction surprised Marcus. Instead of relief at potential allies, her entire form tensed. The crystal key in her hand flared with urgent light. "Zyra," Marcus questioned, but she was already moving, pulling him behind a rock formation. "The crystalline throne," she whispered, her voice tight with something that sounded like fear or guilt. "They've found us." Before Marcus could respond, a beam of pure light struck the ground where they had been standing. The air filled with the sound of crystal chimes as figures descended from the ship, beings similar to Zyra, but adorned in armor that made hers look primitive by comparison. "Sentinel Zyra," a voice rang out, speaking in a language Marcus somehow understood. "You have failed in your duty. Return the key." Marcus turned to Zyra, whose skin had gone almost transparent with tension. "What are they talking about?" "The key was never meant to be used," she said quietly. "The crystalline throne, they don't want to protect humanity. They want to ensure no other species ever reaches our level of advancement. The Void Hunters, they were the last species that came close. The throne transformed them as a warning to others." The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You're not running from them, you're trying to stop them." Zyra nodded, her biomechanical enhancements pulsing with suppressed energy. "The key showed me what really happened, why my people chose to merge with humans. We weren't creating guardians, we were hiding from our own kind, trying to preserve something they wanted to destroy. Your potential, your freedom to choose your own path." The crystal beings were moving closer, their footsteps leaving trails of light in the desert sand. Marcus looked at the alien device in his hand with new understanding. "That's why it responded to me. Your rebels didn't just give us their DNA, they gave us their technology, disguised so your people wouldn't recognize it." "The ruins are full of it," Zyra confirmed. "Waiting for the right moment, the right person. The key led me to you because you can access it all, enough power to challenge even the throne itself." A crystal spear embedded itself in the rock beside them, spraying them with fragments. The choice was rapidly becoming clear: surrender to the throne's vision of controlled evolution, or fight for humanity's right to forge its own destiny. Marcus gripped the alien device tighter, feeling its power surge in response to his determination. "The Void Hunters," he said. "If we free them from whatever the throne did to them." "They'll fight with us," Zyra finished. "But reaching the Forge won't be easy. The path the key shows, it leads through places reality itself has forgotten." Another blast of light, closer this time. The crystal beings were surrounding them, their armor singing with power. Marcus looked at Zyra, seeing not an alien warrior now, but a kindred spirit who had chosen to stand against her own people for what she believed was right. "I spent my life studying the past," he said, raising the device as its power began to build. "Time to help write the future instead." Zyra's skin blazed with colors Marcus had never seen before as her armor shifted into combat mode. The key pulsed between them, showing glimpses of battles yet to come, of choices that would reshape the cosmos. Above them, the crystal ship began to power up its main weapons. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but the fate of every species that would ever look up at the stars and dream of reaching them. Marcus smiled, despite everything. After all, making the impossible choice was apparently part of his heritage. The desert erupted in a battle of light and shadow. Marcus's alien device responded to his instincts, creating shields of energy that deflected the crystal being's attacks. Zyra moved like liquid lightning beside him, her biomechanical enhancements allowing her to match her former master's speed and power. But they were badly outnumbered. For every blast they deflected, 3 more came from different directions. The crystal ship above them hummed with building energy, preparing something that would end the fight permanently. The key, Marcus shouted over the chaos. You said it shows paths through forgotten places. We need one now. Zyra's 3 eyes flickered with understanding. She raised the key, its facets blazing with internal light. Reality rippled around them like heat waves off hot asphalt. The crystal beings surged forward, realizing what they were attempting. Hold on to me, Zyra commanded. Marcus grabbed her arm just as she plunged the key into what looked like a tear in the air itself. The world twisted, folded, and suddenly they were falling through something that wasn't quite space. They emerged in darkness so complete it felt alive. The only light came from Zyra's shifting skin and the patterns of energy flowing through her armor. Marcus's device cast a soft glow that revealed they were standing in some kind of vast chamber. Where are we? He whispered, his voice echoing strangely. The in-between, Zyra replied, her voice tight with tension. The spaces that exist in the folds of reality. My people built networks of hidden paths here leading to places they wanted to keep secret, including. She trailed off as lights began to appear in the darkness, not the harsh brightness of the crystal being's weapons, but a soft, organic illumination that revealed the true scale of their surroundings. They stood in a cavern that seemed to extend forever, its walls covered in technology that looked more grown than built. The Genesis Archive, Zyra breathed. I never thought, the stories said it was destroyed. Marcus stared in wonder at the living machinery around them. What is this place? The true history of my people, before the crystalline throne, before we became obsessed with controlling the evolution of other species. She approached one of the walls, her hand hovering over its surface. This is where we kept the records of our own origins. The wall responded to her presence, flowing like water to form images and symbols. Marcus gasped as he recognized some of them. They were identical to markings he'd found in ruins across Earth, markings that had never made sense until now. Your people didn't just hide among humans, he realized. Earth was your homeworld. Zyra nodded slowly. The throne's greatest secret. We didn't come from the stars, we grew from the same soil as humanity, but something changed us, accelerated our evolution. The throne claims it was divine intervention, proof of our right to guide other species. But these records tell a different story. She waved her hand, and the images shifted to show beings that looked almost human, discovering something in Earth's depths. A power source unlike anything that should have existed naturally. The forge, Marcus said, understanding dawning. It wasn't created by your people, you found it. And its power changed us, transformed us into what we are now. The throne fears humanity because they know what you might become if you discover it too. That's why they've worked so hard to keep Earth isolated, to control your development. A distant sound echoed through the darkness, crystal chimes. The throne had found a way to follow them. They're coming, Zyra said, her armor shifting to combat mode. And they're not alone. The shadows behind them writhed and twisted as void hunters emerged, their forms even more disturbing in the organic light of the archive. But instead of attacking, they stopped, their distorted bodies trembling as they sensed something in the ancient chamber. Marcus raised his device, ready to defend himself, but Zyra caught his arm. Wait, she said, look at them. The hunters were changing. In the presence of the archive's pure energy, the corruption that had twisted them was failing. Their forms began to stabilize, revealing what they had once been, beings not so different from humans. The archive, Zyra whispered. It's undoing what the throne did to them. It remembers what they were supposed to be. One of the hunters stepped forward, its voice raspy but clear. We remember, too, what they took from us, what they would take from all who reach for the stars. The crystal chimes grew louder. Through another tier in reality, the beings of the crystalline throne began to emerge, their perfect forms now seeming cold and artificial in contrast to the archive's living light. Marcus looked at his device, then at the walls of living technology around them. The forge isn't just a power source, is it? It's something more. Zyra's skin rippled with colors that spoke of both hope and fear. It's a choice. A moment when a species has to decide what kind of power they'll reach for, the kind that controls or the kind that creates. The chamber trembled as two forces prepared to clash, the crystal perfection of the throne and the raw potential of worlds reaching for their own destiny. In the middle stood a human archaeologist holding ancient power he was only beginning to understand, and a rebel warrior who had chosen to fight for evolution over control. The next few moments would determine which path all their species would walk, and whether the power that lay sleeping in Earth's depths would finally awaken to its full potential. The Genesis archive chamber became a battlefield of light and shadow as the forces of the crystalline throne clashed with the freed void hunters. Marcus and Zyra fought their way through the chaos, following the key's guidance deeper into the ancient facility. The living walls pulsed with increasing energy, responding to the conflict that would determine the future of multiple civilizations. "The Forge's chamber is ahead," Zyra called out, her biomechanical armor deflecting a crystal spear. "But there's something the key isn't showing me, something about what happens when we reach it." Marcus's device hummed with power as he created a shield around them both. "Maybe that's the point," he said. "The Forge represents choice, remember. If we knew what would happen, it wouldn't be a real choice." They reached a massive doorway that seemed to be made of pure energy. The key pulsed frantically in Zyra's hand, its light synchronizing with patterns in the walls. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew closer. "Once we open this," Zyra warned, "there's no going back. The Forge's power will change everything, all our species, all our worlds." Marcus looked at her, seeing the weight of centuries in her 3 eyes. "Isn't that what evolution is supposed to do?" Before she could respond, a new voice echoed through the chamber, cold, perfect, and terrible in its certainty. "Evolution must be controlled." The supreme arbiter of the crystalline throne emerged from a tear in reality, its form so bright it hurt to look at directly. "We guide species to their proper place in the cosmic order. Without our wisdom, chaos would consume all." "Your wisdom?" A freed void hunter stepped forward, its form now fully restored to its original state. "You twisted us into monsters because we dared to advance without your permission. You would do the same to humanity." The Arbiter's light pulsed with disdain. "Humanity is dangerous. They create without limitation, dream without restraint. Left unchecked, they would remake the cosmos itself." "That's what you're afraid of, isn't it?" Marcus realized, pieces falling into place. "Not that we'll destroy ourselves, but that we'll create something you can't control, something new." The walls of the archive flickered with images, human achievements throughout history, moments of creation and discovery, each one defying the expected limitations of their development. The Arbiter raised a weapon of pure crystal, its power building to strike them down. But Zyra moved faster. She plunged the key into the energy doorway, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The door dissolved, revealing what lay beyond the Forge, a sphere of pure possibility, neither energy nor matter, but something more fundamental. The Arbiter's attack came just as Marcus and Zyra reached the threshold. Time seemed to slow as multiple futures hung in the balance. Marcus saw the choice before them with sudden clarity. They could use the Forge's power to fight back, to become as powerful as the throne itself. But that would just continue the cycle of control and resistance. Or they could do something entirely new. Marcus grabbed Zyra's hand, their shared genetic heritage allowing him to merge his device's power with her armor. The Forge responded to their combined energy, its surface rippling like quicksilver. "What are you doing?" the Arbiter demanded, its perfect voice showing fear for the first time. "Creating without limitation," Marcus answered, "dreaming without restraint." He looked at Zyra, "Together." She nodded, her skin blazing with colors that had no names. As one, they stepped into the Forge's light. Power surged through them both, not transforming them into beings of crystal perfection, but awakening something that had been sleeping in their shared DNA since the first humans looked up at the stars and wondered. The Forge's energy expanded outward in a wave that encompassed everything, the archive, the battling forces, Earth itself. Where it passed, it didn't force change, but offered possibility. Each being it touched was given the same choice that humanity had faced countless times throughout its history, the choice to remain as they were, or to take a step into the unknown. The Arbiter's crystal form cracked as the wave hit it, not destroying it, but offering it something it had forgotten long ago, the capacity to change, to grow, to be uncertain and wonderful and free. When the light faded, the chamber was transformed. The technology in the walls had evolved into something that blended the organic and the artificial in ways neither species had imagined possible. The freed void hunters stood transformed, their forms now a bridge between what they had been and what they might become. And in the center of it all, Marcus and Zyra emerged from the Forge's light, changed but still themselves. Their shared DNA had been fully awakened, making them living proof that evolution wasn't about reaching a perfect final form, but about endless adaptation and growth. "What have you done?" the Arbiter whispered, its perfect voice now carrying harmonics of doubt and wonder. "We didn't end the game," Zyra said, her biomechanical armor now seamlessly merged with her form. "We just changed the rules, no more controllers and controlled. From now on, every species chooses its own path." Marcus looked at the device in his hand, now transformed into something that was part tool, part living extension of himself. "The Forge wasn't a weapon or a power source," he said. "It was a reminder of what we can all become when we stop trying to control evolution and start participating in it instead." Above them, through the tears in reality, they could see the stars. But they weren't distant points of light anymore. They were doorways, waiting for species ready to step through them not as conquerors or controllers, but as fellow travelers on an endless journey of discovery. The choice had been made. The future was uncertain, uncontrolled, and filled with infinite possibility, just as it always should have been.